I was able to retire off of just one Airbnb, not by owning 10 properties or by raising a ton of capital, but by using a strategy called Airbnb house hacking. That's where you buy a small multifamily unit, live in one, and list the others as short-term rentals. That one move freed up my income so that I could reinvest and scale from there. Now, I didn't start out by buying. I actually began by listing spare bedrooms in a home that I owned that were empty after a breakup. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do exactly what I did and what I would do differently if I were starting today. The first and most important step in starting an Airbnb business is finding the right location, neighborhood, and property. For the location, you want to pick a place where people are already going. Is it a cute downtown? Do you have national or state parks, employers, a hospital, a university? Some sort of draw that naturally brings people. Because here's the thing, it doesn't matter how cute your decor is. If people aren't already going to that location, it's going to be really hard to be profitable. So you'll want to pick a location that has at least 3 strong reasons why people visit that region. So now you're going to have to pick the neighborhood. So let's go over the characteristics for what makes for a great neighborhood for an Airbnb. First is, are you close enough to the action but not being right in the thick of it? Guests want to be able to very quickly walk or drive to the things to do in that location. So you want to be within 5 to 20 minutes, but not right in the middle, because then it's probably going to be super loud, which takes me to the second characteristic. Are you in a quiet and safe location? Keep in mind that guests are going to rate you on the location. So they're going to be looking at the safety, the noise, and you don't want to set yourself up for failure by picking a location that's really loud or where guests are just not going to feel comfortable. The third thing that you'll need to pay attention to when it comes to the neighborhood is parking. Is there ample parking on the street, or do you have dedicated parking in a driveway, or maybe you rent a spot? One of the things that neighbors of Airbnbs often complain about is the lack of parking, because guests are coming and taking all the spots. So you really just kind of want to nip that in the bud by making sure that you're finding a spot where that is not going to be an issue. The fourth characteristic that you want to be very careful about when selecting your neighborhood is the density. Are the houses too close together where the neighbors are going to hear a lot of the noise from the Airbnb guests, or vice versa? Okay, so now let's get into the third aspect, which is the property itself. Here's the thing, not all homes make for great Airbnbs. One, you want to think about the layout. Is the home going to allow all of your guests to be able to gather and spend time together? So think about the size of the living room and the dining room. You want to be able to have enough seating for every single guest so that they can be together. You also want enough bathrooms for the number of guests. I like 2 guests for every bathroom. Okay, bedrooms. Do your bedrooms all have privacy? Do they all have doors? And are they far enough away from each other where the noise isn't going to carry from one bedroom to the next? Here's another really important tip when it comes to the property, and that's having ample space to store all of your supplies. You're going to have bulky things that you're going to have to keep: all of your toilet paper, paper towels, vacuum, your cleaning supplies. You're not going to necessarily want guests to have access to that. The final thing to think about when it comes to the property itself is you're not going to want to pick a home that's going to need major systems overhauls, like a new roof, foundation, water heater, things like that, because those things tend to cost a lot of money and they are not going to get you a higher nightly rate. Another thing to avoid, if you can, which I can't given my location, is avoid steep stairs. And that's because, one, it's definitely going to filter out some guests. Not all guests want to deal with stairs or are able to deal with stairs. Even though you'll take photos of them and you will include that there are stairs in your listing copy, guests are not going to pay attention to it. You have no idea how many times guests have messaged me saying, oh, there's so many stairs in this home, I didn't know. Even though my actual listing photo, the very first one, shows the stairs, guests are not necessarily paying attention, and it can be problematic. Let's talk about how I financed my very first Airbnb. So after selling that townhouse that I had owned in 2019, I could then purchase my first duplex. I was able to use an owner-occupied loan, which allowed me to put a lot less money down because I was living in the home. So instead of 20%, I was able to put just 15% down. And there are other mortgage options that allow you to put down even less. There's what's called the FHA loan, which could allow you to put down as little as 3 to 5% if you are going to live in the home as well. And that is what is so powerful about this strategy, because you don't have to put as much money up front to get it going. The other thing I had to account for were the closing costs, which in my case were 5%, and in states across the country, they tend to range from 3 to 5%. I used the rest of the sale proceeds to then remodel my duplex. And when that was done, I was able to get a home equity line of credit, which allowed me to take out another loan against that house. I got an appraisal and the home appraised for a lot more than I was expecting. So I had a pretty big amount of money that I could tap into that HELOC to then furnish my B&B. And the cool thing about the strategy that I used is that because I committed to living in the home that I was Airbnb-ing, I had all of these financial tools available to me. That is what makes this strategy so powerful. You may not have a lump sum of money available to you from the sale of a home. If you're already in a home, you might be able to get a HELOC on that home and use that money as the down payment and to furnish your Airbnb. Now, when I furnished my very first Airbnb, I spent about $25,000, which is not what I do anymore. Today, I am a pro at furnishing and decorating on a budget. I use a combination of new items and secondhand stuff where I can. I do have a list of all of the furnishing that I use and recommend in my Airbnbs, which I'll leave in a pinned comment. Even if you want to go the more budget route, the biggest tip I have here is to not go cheap. You don't need to blow your budget, but you also should not be buying things that are cheaply made and are going to break on you or a guest in about a year. For things like furniture, I try to shop at antique stores because those things are made of real wood and they're built to last. I try to avoid Amazon furniture at all costs because that stuff is made out of cardboard and it's gonna disintegrate within a year or two. Remember that short-term rentals get a ton of wear and tear, so you want your furnishing to really stand the test of time. There are a few golden rules that I follow when it comes to my furnishing. The first is for linens. You want to buy 3 sets of everything, sheets and towels. That's because you're gonna have a clean set that the guest is using, a dirty set that your cleaner will be washing, and then you'll have a spare set just in case. I don't break the bank on my linens, and in fact, I get them all at Costco. And that's because no matter the brand, you're still gonna be replacing them in about a year's time. So I don't go super cheap, but I don't go expensive either. I like to be right in the middle, and Costco has me covered on that. The next golden rule that I follow is making sure that whatever furniture I buy, it is comfortable. And nowhere is this more important than the mattress. But again, here I don't break the bank. I actually buy a relatively inexpensive foam mattress that my guests absolutely love. It's the 10-inch Zinus mattress that I do get on Amazon. I also buy the memory foam mattress topper for that bed, just in case guests want a little extra comfort. The other thing about the bed is I get 4 pillows for each. 2 that are more flat, 2 that are more plump. That way guests can use whatever is most comfortable for them. The other golden rule that I follow for my furnishing is to make sure to have plenty of throw blankets and throw pillows around, because that just makes a more cozy and comfortable space. And trust me, guests really appreciate it and they use them. And they come through great on the photos. The third golden rule that I follow for my furnishing is to make sure to fully equip the kitchen. Nothing creates a worse impression on guests than being cheap in the kitchen. They choose an Airbnb because they want to cook and they want to be able to feel like they're in a home. So you want to get everything that they could possibly need and make sure, again, that it's really high quality. The final golden rule that I follow when it comes to furnishing is to think about how it's going to look in the photos. In the last unit that I launched, I broke this golden rule and I absolutely regret it. And that's because I took a chance on a different kind of duvet than I normally buy. And while I loved the color, I didn't like the way that it showed up in the photos. It looked incredibly frumpy, and I have since gotten a new duvet, the normal one that I usually use, but I'm not gonna spend another $200 getting photos done. So now I just have photos of my Airbnb listing of the bedroom that I just don't love. So make sure that you are thinking about how all of your furnishing and decor is going to photograph before you commit to it. So now your listing is all furnished, you're ready to go. Let's talk about how you run your business so that it doesn't run you. I'm able to run my Airbnb business in about an hour a week, and that's because I've automated everything. For communication and pricing, there are a couple of different softwares I use. The first is Hospitable, and it's a property management software. It communicates to my guests, my cleaner, as well as my pricing software and my smart lock. So once I set it up, there's very little that I have to do to maintain it. It sends all of my guests every message that they need to be comfortable in their stay. My guests get a confirmation, they get a check-in note the first morning of their stay, check-out instructions, and if they haven't reviewed me, a reminder 3 days after they've checked out to please give me a review. So that means the only thing that I have to do is answer occasional questions from guests. And what I really love about Hospitable is that it has AI integrated into the messaging so that I'm able to use that to generate a reply to guests. I read it over and I send it off. So I spend very little time communicating to guests. Then I use the smart pricing software, which looks at market demand and adjusts my rates accordingly. I just go in once a week to make sure that the base price that I set makes sense, and then I make any adjustments there. And if going more into depth on how I do my pricing is something you want to see, let me know down in the comments. While Airbnb has pricing built into its platform, I don't use it and I don't recommend that hosts use it. And that's because Airbnb has a different incentive than you do as a host. Airbnb wants to earn as much money as possible, and it does that by having more and more guests, which means pricing listings lower. But you want to make as much profit as possible from each guest, so you want to charge higher prices. Next, I automate my maintenance and supplies. I have pest control come every quarter. I change my AC filters once a month. I pay someone to take out the trash and recycling on a weekly basis. I schedule my landscaper to come every other week, and I buy enough supplies to last a year. The thing that takes me the most time is bookkeeping and budgeting. But even here, I'm as efficient as possible. For my bookkeeping, I use QuickBooks and I paid a bookkeeper to set it up properly for me so that I'm categorizing everything properly come tax time. And I give access to my CPA to QuickBooks so she can just pull the reports that she needs. Every single month, I run those reports and make sure that my profit and loss statements are accurate. Then every month I also go into my budgeting software, which is You Need a Budget, and I plan out all of my money. I like to pay my bills 2 months ahead of time, so have all of my bills paid for the current month as well as the next month before I take any profits. So between answering guest questions and doing my budgeting, that's where I spend an hour a week. While my business is completely dialed in, there are some things that I would change if I were starting from scratch today. The first is I would buy more units up front. While that first duplex was incredible, I would have waited out to get a 4-unit. And that's because I would have just been cash flowing a lot more from the beginning. And keep in mind that owner-occupied loans like the FHA can be used to buy a 4-unit building as long as you live in one of the units. The other thing I would change if I were starting over in 2025 is I would invest in soundproofing. In my location, I can't avoid sharing walls with my neighbors. So if I were doing the remodels today, I would invest more in insulation and adding extra drywall to cut off the sound with my neighbor. And that's why I just suggest if you can avoid sharing walls with your neighbors, definitely do that. The third thing that I would change if I were starting in 2025 is I would just go secondhand sooner. I spent way too much money furnishing that first unit when I could have done just as good a job for a lot less money. Shop for furniture at antique shops, Facebook Marketplace, and stores like Habitat for Humanity Restore. And I'll show you some images of my unit that is furnished almost entirely from Habitat for Humanity Restore, and you'll see, it looks fantastic. You don't have to look grandma or cheap if you go secondhand, as long as you buy smart. Buying your first Airbnb is just one path. You could do arbitrage, which is rent a place and then relist it on Airbnb, or you can house hack a home that you already own by renting out a room. In my next video, I'll break down all 3 major Airbnb models and who they're right for so that you can pick the strategy that best fits you. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.